My name is Jawanda Ann Enochs Bozeman. I'm a 1967 graduate of South Calhoun County High School in Calhoun City, Mississippi. Growing up here was quite interesting. Many things were segregated. We could not go to the public library. We couldn't go to, well, no parks or anything like that. The movie theater, we could go there, but we had to sit upstairs and the white people sat downstairs. And my parents always said, if you can't be treated like everyone else, you don't go there. You don't patronize those places. So I never went to the movies when I was younger. And I think when I finally did go, we went as a family. One of the places that I remember going to, and of course, I drove all through high school with no driver's license. And I everybody thought I had driver's license. And there was a little place across from the post office, the current post office in Calhoun City, that was a walk up where you could get served hamburgers, hot dogs, ice cream, any kind of food you wanted. And there was a sign above the window that said colored, and it had an arrow pointing around to the side. So this particular day, of course, as I said before, we had been told to stay away, but I was feeling brave that day. And I don't remember how old I was, but I know I was old enough to be driving and I was by myself. So I went there, got out. I had a piece of paper in my hand as though I had things written on it. And I walked up to the window and I could see the girl inside waving her hand for me to go to the side. But I stayed focused on the menu and did not acknowledge her. And finally, she raised the window and she said, "If you want to be helped, you got to go around to the side." So I said, okay. I said, well, can I place my order here and then go around to the side and pick it up? And she said, okay. So I stood there and I ordered several items, hot dogs, hamburgers, and you could get them with onions, without onions, with
Mhm.
pickles, whatever, however you wanted them. And I probably stood there for 2 or 3 minutes, long enough to think, okay, maybe they have the burgers on the grill now. And I
Mhm.
got in my car and left. And of course, we lived out on the Blue House Road, and at that time it was gravel. So I just prayed that the police would not come after me. So, of course, everything I did, I always told my parents, and finally they got to the point where they wouldn't let me go uptown by myself. And the
Mhm.
same thing happened in the doctor's office, the dentist. We would, well, I guess this was when I came home from college. That's when I would usually get my dental appointments in. And the dentist's office, it had one side was for whites and the other side for colored, as they
Wow.
called us during that time. And I knew that. And I parked on the white side and I went in through the door for whites and went in and sat down and grabbed a magazine. And as soon as the receptionist saw me, she ran over. She said, "Oh, there's a room for y'all on the other side."
Wow.
And I said, "I'm reading this article." I said, "This is a really interesting article. Have you seen this?" And of course, no, no. I said, "Well, I would like to finish reading it." So I went back and sat down, and of course, they got to me immediately, and got my appointment in and everything. But those were just little things that I did to test the system. I was never rude or never
Mhm.
said things that were inappropriate to anybody, but it was just kind of a silent way of letting people know that I was not satisfied with
Mhm.
the way things were.
Mhm.
Um,
How did your parents handle you, like being so free in those things? Did they try to coach you and say, "Hey, you can't do that," or you just?
I think my dad probably tried to protect me some. And once he
Mm-hmm.
found out some of the things I was doing, like I said, he just wouldn't let me go uptown by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And another good example, this is when I was in college and I was riding the bus from Talladega, Alabama
Mm.
to Houston. That's where my parents would pick me up. And we had stopped along the way to just take a break and get some snacks. And I went in. People were ordering chips and soda, things like that. So I got a bag of chips and ordered my soda. And then somebody else ordered another soda of a different flavor. And I thought, I think I'd like to have that one. So I changed my order. And so the guy behind the counter said, make up your mind. And he took the bag of chips and he threw them at me as he said, make up your mind. So I
Mm-hmm.
picked the chips up and I threw them back and I said, I just did. And I walked away and I didn't get anything. But there was
Uh-huh.
a black soldier on that bus trip in uniform. So I went over, sat next to him, I guess, for thinking he would protect me because I knew, what I had done wasn't
Uh-huh.
necessarily wrong, but it was against what,
The
people
system what?
expected
Mm.
against the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I, was always willing to kind of rock that boat a little bit. Um,
Uh-huh.
and there were just so many other things, even some of the contests that we used to participate in. I remember once we were in the 4 H club. My
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad were sponsors for that. And public speaking was one of the projects that you could do, and that was mine. And
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking against a white young man who became a very well known attorney in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I spoke circles around him. I had
Mm-hmm.
memorized my speech. I had emphasis in all the right places, and it was the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And I got second place. But years
Wow.
later, I went to his office as an attorney, and I brought it up to him, and he
Wow.
just kind of started laughing because we had kind of had a relationship, and I could tease with him, and he said, "Yeah, I agree. You really did better than I did." But what could we do? So, but those lessons never discouraged me because I knew I guess the cards were always stacked against me, but
Mm-hmm.
it just, I guess, gave me something to say, you're making progress. This is good. So you just got to keep on doing what you're doing.
That's
So
awesome. So where did you go to college?
I went to Talladega College, Talladega, Alabama.
Okay. And what
hmm
was your major?
My major was elementary education. I'm a
Okay.
third generation educator. Both my parents were teachers. My grandpa was a teacher in Calhoun County. He taught for
Mm-hmm.
51 years, and I retired in 2013. I taught
Oh
in
wow.
South Bend, Indiana. I taught in Killeen,
Mm-hmm.
Texas,
Okay.
and I ended my career in St. Louis, Missouri.
So did you want to leave Calhoun County after you finish, or the South after you finish high school?
Not necessarily. I don't know that I wanted to stay either, but I knew something had to change. I
Mm-hmm.
did my student teaching in Niles, Michigan, and basically the jobs that I applied for were in that area, which is
Okay.
how I ended up in South Bend, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from that.
Okay.
So I always had a desire to come back to Mississippi, but I just never made it. And at this
Mm-hmm.
point, I don't know that I will. So
So what did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
both my parents were teachers. As a matter of fact, my mom was my fourth grade teacher.
Awesome.
And my dad was my math teacher in seventh and eighth grade. And I think, let's see, in seventh grade, he was my homeroom teacher. We did light farming because we lived out in the country. We had cows, chickens, pigs, turkeys, and my dad grew corn just enough to feed, the animals.
Mhm.
We grew a few sweet potatoes, we grew peanuts, and always had a huge garden with lots
Mhm.
of, vegetables. So that was, and I worked, that was just
Mhm.
something I enjoyed doing. And as I mentioned earlier, I was in the 4-H club and we had projects. And one of my projects was yard beautification. So I got to cut the grass, do all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And even as an adult, I still enjoy, doing that. But those things that I learned during that time were, I mean, like life skills. I mean, I can,
Exactly.
I still do that now.
Mhm.
um a funny story.
Mhm.
I guess it's funny, it wasn't funny at the time. I used to see kids, the truck go by our house, kids on the truck, they were going to pick cotton.
Mhm.
And I would be out in the yard and they would wave, and I was like, oh, looks like they're having so much fun. So I begged my dad, please, can I go to pick cotton? So he got in touch with the guy, and the next, I guess that Monday or whatever, I got a chance to go. And at the end of that day, everybody took two rows, and most people spent the day helping me on my rows keep up with everybody else. And then I decided, I don't think I want to do this because it wasn't as much fun as it looked like. So when I got home, I told my dad, I said, I don't want to go back. He said, no, you're going the whole week. So
Mm.
I that was my my cotton picking. I thought, yeah, what looks like it was a lot of fun wasn't so much fun. So anyway,
Anything you want to add about Calhoun County and oh, prom? Did you go to prom?
I did go to prom my junior and senior year. I went to
Oh,
prom,
okay.
and since both of my parents were teachers, I think they were both at my junior prom, or was it my senior prom? One of them they went to, one they didn't.
Uh
So, they knew exactly what time the prom was over. So
huh.
I
Now,
did go.
could you date during high school?
I did date
Okay.
during high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your parents weren't religious. Will they stop you from having boys coming over and
They were, but I mean, as long as they were respectful,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, they couldn't stay half the night, and they couldn't come to my house at, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
They had to come at a decent hour, but that,
Awesome. Thank you.
okay.